Here in the room.
Representative Koenig,
Here in the room.
Representative Meredith, Representative Miles, Representative Mentor, Representative Pratt, Representative Stone, Representative Tate,
Here in the room.
Senator Humphreys, Senator McDaniel, Representative Gooch, Representative Miller,
Here in the room.
Representative Reed,
Okay.
Representative Rudy, Co-Chair Dossett, Co-Chair Stewart, Chair Mills.
Here in the room, and Representative Bratcher is online.
Thank you.
Oh, he can't, he says he can't hear. Okay. Okay. We do have a quorum. All right, we have a packed agenda, so if you are testifying and talking with us, if you can stay within your allotted time amount, that would be great. First up on the agenda, and obviously we are totally concerned about budgetary items as we move into next session to craft our one-year budget. So first up is the Finance and Administration Cabinet, and is Secretary Johnson online? Maybe not.
You are now unmuted.
Can you hear us online now? Secretary Johnson on?
Yes, I am.
Very good. You have the floor for maybe 12 to 15 minutes.
Right, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you an update on the work of the Finance Cabinet. I'm Holly McCoy Johnson, Secretary of the Finance and Administration Cabinet, and with me today is Tina Howard. Tina runs the budget and fiscal management areas of the Cabinet and has been doing state government budgets for 18 years. As this is the first time before this committee, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself to those of you who do not know me or my background. I'm a veteran state employee, having worked for Kentucky state government in both merit and non-merit positions since 1994. Over the course of my 27-year career in public service, I have worked for the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services and the Public Protection Cabinet. I've served as Executive Director of General Administration and Program Support Shared Services, which provided administrative support such as budget, fiscal, HR, and fleet management to the Labor, Energy and Environment, and Public Protection Cabinets. And I also worked for the Office of Attorney General before having the honor of being appointed Secretary of the Finance Cabinet by Governor Beshear. Next slide, please. While Finance and Administration is a diverse cabinet, its purpose is fairly straightforward. It is the primary support agency for state government, serving a diverse customer base of state agencies, local governments, businesses, and vendors, as well as individual taxpayers. In brief, the Cabinet and its agencies provide state revenue administration, statewide fiscal management, state purchasing and contracts, fleet management, postal services, risk management, information technology support, facility and construction management, surplus property services, minority and women-owned business certification, and service disabled veteran-owned business certification. Next slide, please. With a staff of almost 1,500 and an almost $900 million budget, the Cabinet manages 5,300 vehicles, processes an average of 30 million pieces of mail annually, certified 304 businesses through the Minority Women and Service Disabled Business Program, collected $11.2 billion in general fund and $1.3 billion in road fund receipts, supports 90 state-owned buildings and over 800 leased properties, manages over 29,000 workstations and over 30,800 email accounts, and self-insured $26.5 billion in assets, and this includes buildings, vehicles, and equipment. Next slide, please. This slide provides a budget summary for the Cabinet and its agencies for fiscal year 2021. And I'll let you see that for just a moment. As you can see, we do have very close to a $900 million budget in total. And those are our budget units. Next slide, please. We have separated that into a budget tab. The chart provides a visual summary of the budget. More than half of the Cabinet's FY21 budget is for debt service. This is because the Finance Cabinet holds debt service for all the debt issued by the Commonwealth. The next largest portions of the Cabinet's budget are for the Commonwealth Office of Technology at a little more than 15%, and the Department of Revenue at just under 13%. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I just realized that I never turned my video on. Let me do that. Sorry about that. This slide shows a breakdown of the budget by fund source, with the largest fund source being the general fund, which makes up more than 70% of the fiscal year 21 budget. Next slide is expenditures. Finally, I have the expenditure summary for fiscal year 2021. Unlike most other state agencies where personnel is usually the largest expenditure, again, you can see that service makes up more than 53% of the Finance Cabinet's budget for FY21. Again, this is because the Cabinet carries the debt as approved by the General Assembly for all of the Commonwealth. I provide all this information to you as context for how the Cabinet and its agencies function to support the operations of Kentucky state government. Going into this budget, the Cabinet did take some reductions, the largest of which was to the Commonwealth Office of Technology, which I will refer to as COT. First, I'd like to acknowledge the significant work COT has done to minimize the disruption of important government services during the COVID-19 worldwide health pandemic. Without their support, my staff and I would be unable to appear virtually before you today using the tools and technical support made possible by COT. Next slide, please. In the FY21 budget, COT endured a fund transfer of $14.1 million to the general fund, which has a significant impact on its ability to provide necessary services to state government agencies and the constituencies they serve. All COT assessments to its agency clients are to provide identified IT support for services and to cover overhead, as these are the funds provided to COT to operate. There are no general funds appropriated to COT. The $14.1 million transfer directly impacts services for which state agencies have paid, while COT's ability to provide these services has been diminished by approximately the same dollar amount as the transfer. In an effort to overcome this budget cut, COT reduced its workforce by 40 contractor positions. It has terminated the Enterprise Digitalization Initiative, as well as suspended the single sign-in project. In addition to the $14 million fund transfer, COT was also forced to cap service rates at FY19 levels, creating a sizable funding gap that weakened the stability of statewide IT services upon which all state agencies depend. Operating system upgrades on approximately 5,000 workstations are delayed and slowed as a result of the reduced funding available, as rated services could not be increased to cover the cost of providing for the necessary security upgrades submitted in the budget request. COT is required to meet defined calculation payments of employees, but unlike other government agencies, was not provided the increase in appropriation or ability to increase service rates to meet the requirement. The security assessment, another rated service that was capped at FY19 rates, is delaying critically necessary enhancements to the state security program and the procurement or upgrade of tools to detect security threats and intrusions. While the state has enjoyed a robust security program, any relaxing of these high standards puts the data entrusted to the state by the citizens of the Commonwealth at risk. In spite of the fund transfer and capped service rates, DOT has done everything it can to make the numbers meet the budget it was given. While the budget requires DOT to carry forward approximately $10 million, at this time, DOT is not projected to meet its year-end cash balance target. Next slide, please. Next, I will address the impact to the Department of Revenue. First, I want to emphasize that the Department of Revenue is the state agency that administers the tax laws and the collection of tax revenues on behalf of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Anytime the Department of Revenue's budget is negatively impacted, it hampers the state's ability to optimize the tax collections to support the Commonwealth's general fund. In the Department's FY21 budget, a request for 52 full-time revenue-generating staff positions were not funded. Operating costs for the integrated tax system, also referred to as DORA, were not funded. Every Kentucky taxpayer will benefit from this complete upgrade of hundreds of 30-year-old systems with enhanced transparency and access to their tax information and obligations. Recognizing the significant benefit of this project to the taxpayers, DOR is moving forward with the DORA's project and absorbing the operating costs by decreasing funded positions. Next slide, please. Facilities management also experienced a reduction in its enacted budget, which has forced the department to defer scheduled maintenance, ultimately costing taxpayers more in the long run. Without sufficient funding for timely preventative maintenance on any of the number of state-owned properties, repair costs increase. And any time facilities is forced to extend a project and its completion date, it ultimately costs the taxpayers more in state funds. Redirecting funds away from facilities for costs that cannot reasonably be avoided and the resulting delays always means the cost will be more. Next slide, please. Despite the struggles in the aforementioned budget cuts, the Finance Cabinet continues to work hard to be responsive to the state agencies it serves. Along with their ongoing work, the COVID-19 pandemic has provided new opportunities for service and some demonstrated new successes. In response to the worldwide health pandemic, some examples of emergency response work performed by the Finance and Administration Cabinet include the sourcing and purchasing of critical PPE, testing supplies, medical staff, and medical equipment, the deep cleaning of state offices and public areas, setting up health check stations in the 90 state-owned office buildings, designing and posting signage in state offices regarding COVID-19 protocols, and adjusting revenue collection processes to align with federal IRS adjustments when authorized to do so. Additionally, DOT helps ensure services to citizens continued when state office buildings closed and state employees began working remotely in response to the pandemic. Some of these actions by DOT include adding 7,000 users to VPN, standing up new hotlines for the governor's office, implementing solutions for a telecommuting workforce, installing remote clients for agency call centers and training the users, adding numerous conference phones, providing additional support for other tools and systems that assist in remote communication, collaboration, and data sharing, such as Skype, Teams, Delivery, and Move It. And while Kentuckians continue to fight the battle of their lifetime against COVID-19, agencies within the Finance and Administration Cabinet have made other progress in their commitment to public service. Next slide, please. For the 33rd consecutive year, the Office of Controller has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association, the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. This is an important factor that bond rating agencies use to evaluate the creditworthiness of a governmental unit. The Office of Facility Development and Efficiency closed out 235 capital construction projects and currently has approximately 850 projects in progress, which are vital to maintaining and improving the Commonwealth's facilities. These projects also have an enormous impact on the state's economy by providing high-paying construction, electrical, plumbing, and other skilled trade jobs. In preparation for the primary and general elections, DOT prepared over 300 computers for the State Board of Elections and successfully rolled them out in 120 counties with 100% completion before deadlines to accommodate made mail-in ballots. And in the last 10 months, the Finance Cabinet has refinanced $66.7 million in bonds at lower interest rates, which resulted in a $1.7 million savings in debt service. In March, the Department of Revenue Integrated Systems, SORS, entered development and is on target for a Release 1 implementation date of September 2021. This $92 million project is scheduled for completion in December 2023. And as I mentioned previously, that is going to provide additional transparency and access to taxpayers into their tax records and obligations. So it will also update 30-year-old tax systems, which is going to be a great benefit for state and the taxpayers. In closing, I want to add that the Finance and Administration Cabinet is a dedicated group of talented and hardworking professionals that I'm very privileged to work with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for this opportunity to appear before you today and speak about the Finance and Administration Cabinet. And at this time, I'm ready to take any questions.
Very good. Secretary Johnson, thank you so much. We have two short questions. Representative Koenig has the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Secretary. The 52 revenue-generating spots, can you describe those that are unfilled, exactly what you mean by revenue-generating?
Well, I'll have to get back to you on the specifics. This was a request that was made by Revenue and was included in the governor's requested budget. And actually, I believe these positions were moving along quite well up until COVID hit. And then they were not included in the final budget. But these are various positions throughout Revenue that I can get you more specificity on the exact titles if you would like that.
Well, I mean, the titles are nice, but I'm interested in what exactly they do to generate revenue, since we need some, and some cost-benefit analysis as to what we could expect those spots to cost, as well as what we would expect them to generate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. I will get that to you.
Very good question. Senator Thomas has a short question.
Secretary Johnson, this is Senator Thomas. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
From where you sit, Secretary Johnson, as the Secretary of the Finance Administration Cabinet, as we prepare to adopt a 21-22 budget, in your opinion, what is the greatest need of Kentucky in the new budget we're going to adopt for the next year? What is our greatest need from where you sit?
Right now, State Budget Director Hicks will be addressing the Full Appropriation and Revenue Committee at 1, and I think that he can speak more about the overall needs statewide. I'm not comfortable necessarily speaking what my opinion is, because there are various aspects throughout the budget that I'm just not comfortable saying what my opinion is. I think that we need to have that full view for him to address when he comes before the committee, the full committee.
All right, Secretary Johnson, thank you so much. We have to move on to our next speaker, which is a representative from the Personnel Cabinet. And I apologize, I do not have your name, so if you could introduce yourself.
Good morning, this is Secretary Joanna Weather,
Oh.
Personnel Cabinet.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, you have about 10 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Just want to thank you for the invitation to actually share about the Personnel Cabinet today, highlighting the 2021 budget and the officers that are actually serving here within the Cabinet and what we've actually accomplished this past year. So I have here with me not only myself, but we have Commissioner Raina Diaz-Dempsey, who heads our Department of Employee Insurance, and Executive Director Jenna Smith, our Office of Administrative Services, and who I also call our own personnel budget guru. They are here today to actually answer any questions that you may have, so we'll move forward. Next slide, please. As you can see, what we do here at the Kentucky Personnel Cabinet is we actually take care and make sure that other agencies are taken care of through policies and procedures kind of the communication hub for all the agencies, which we take very seriously. You see here with the numbers of a total of about 28,000 employees of the executive branch. We also here have some some awesome, hard-working group of people here. The personal cabinet couldn't do it without them. There's about 160 of us. And then we also house the Kentucky Employees Health Plan, which you will hear about very briefly, which is about approximately a little over 300,000 of our members that are actually part of that program. Next slide, please. Just real quickly, Chairman and members of the committee, this gives you just a snapshot of our offices that are within the personnel cabinet. Of course, you have our legal services and public affairs, and our big ones that you'll see there is our Department for Human Resources, our Department of Employee Insurance. We also have here House and Personnel Kentucky Public Employees Deferred Compensation Authority. You'll hear a little bit about that today. And just an array of offices that have worked very, very hard this past year in the past, so we can share exactly where this budget goes to and how it's activated. Next slide, please. Chairman, you have here is our personnel cabinet. This is for the fiscal year of 2021. We operate on restricted funds. As you can see in the first column, it's about $62 million. It is actually exactly how the legislation had appropriated it in April of 2020. The only modification that you will see is the federal expenditure that's going to be in your second column, and that is actually taking care of our COVID testing for our state employees that we began in March, and that will continue to the end of the year. The majority of the cabinet's budget is also workers' compensation claims and administration, and you'll see that in just a minute. The remaining budget covers salaries, fringe, operating costs, maintenance, and last but not least, of the two major technology systems, which is our CRIS and My Purpose. Those technology systems actually take care of our onboarding and everything that we do as far as the evaluation and performance process for all of the employees in state government. Next slide, please. Just real quickly, there are some highlights that we wanted to share with you today as it relates to our budget and what we do. The Department of Human Resources Administration, along with our Office of Legal Services, has been very, very proactive this past year in developing just procedures and policies that we needed during the state of emergency that was created by the governor in March. We also wanted to share with you, because it has been talked about in the past, that providing 10 days of emergency paid sick leave. That was one of the biggest things that we did for all of our state governments as we transitioned from healthy at work to healthy at home. Next slide, please. Also, with our Office of Legal Services, we couldn't do anything without them. They're pretty much our basis for everything that we do throughout our cabinet. When we create and send out communications and policies dealing with our state government, but they have partnered with our Department of Employee Relations and other personnel departments to make sure that we take care of also any type of federal information that we receive and how we articulate that and get that to our state government employees. Next slide, please. Our Department of Employee Insurance with Commissioner D.S. Dempsey, who's actually only been here for about 3 months, give or take. So she actually started her career right here in personnel, so she has over 27 years of state government experience. We're glad to have her here. We have about 300,000 of our members that are part of the Kentucky Employee Health Plan. There's been a lot of great things that have been happening throughout the year. We just completed our enrollment services for our members for 2021. And as you can see, we processed approximately 43,000 enrollment applications that we just completed. And then, as we always do, even if we're not actually in the building, we're servicing the customer service, which is our employees and our members, every day. We'll continue to do that. The next slide, please. And as you will see here, we just wanted to share with the subcommittee and chairman how the members of the Kentucky Employees Health Program has actually responded to telehealth services. What our biggest main thing that we do not only are they taken care of medically, but also behaviorally, physically, and that's what this plan is all about. So as you can see, we have transitioned to experiencing a 55% increase, and our members actually using our telehealth service and program. And you can see right there what we're saying when we say that a 32% increase in medical, where they are actually able to talk to their healthcare providers. This is the difference between 2019 and this year. And in behavioral health, there's a 76% increase. So we make sure with this, especially with this program and with this planning through the budget, that we know what's happening with our state employees as it relates to healthcare services. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown, Chairman and members of the committee, about our health care plan of $1.9 billion. At 95% of our Kentucky employee health plan expenses are claim payments. Of that 95% is broken down into 63% of those are medical claims that are paid out. And then 27% are going to be your RX, or what they call the prescription claims. We also wanted to share with you, especially as it relates to budget, that the Department of Employee Insurance salaries are less than 1/4 of a penny for every dollar that's spent throughout this plan. Next slide, please. With our workers' comp, again, as I shared with you earlier, a large part of our budget is our workers' compensation plan. We have provided and taken care of 58,000 employees and volunteers. And I just want to share with you what that covers. Our entity it includes, but does not, it also includes our state cabinets and agencies, with the exception of the transportation cabinet. You have our first responders, you have our state active duty National Guard, sheriff's office, volunteer firefighters, social workers, those who are working in our child advocacy and rape crisis center. This is a very, it's a wonderful program that we have here, but it's also, it's much needed, and it's also under the KRS 342. So we wanted to share with you what that looks like and where these benefits have been going. Next slide, please. Since March, the workers' compensation program has paid out over $372,000 in benefits. That is only for the COVID-19 related claims. So that's been very, very critical in maintaining our health and just financial well-being of our employees. And that happens every day. We get that information every day, and we work very, very closely with what's going on with that. Alan Hurst has that program for our workers' compensation. Next slide, please. And just to share with you, in January, we launched our electronic performance management system. And as many of us know, I've been here, I think I'm going on 18 years in state government. We know about the archaic plan of the performance evaluation and onboarding and of the like, and what we call these red pins that we use. We are now transferred over into an electronic overhaul, which has just been absolutely wonderful and assisted over 24,000 employees. A lot more efficient, and we do want to share, because of this program and this performance management piece, we've actually been selected as the Best of Kentucky award winner in the most innovative use of technology. And that's actually looking at other technology programs outside of Kentucky. So we're very proud of that. Next slide, please.
Mr. Secretary, about 3-4 more minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. And just real quickly, our Kentucky Deferred Compensation Authority, under Chris Biddle, which we can't do it without him. We've assisted over 77,000 participants. But just down here, just that big number that you see, we have $3 billion. That is where those are our employees who are part of this plan, and that's what they will get back when they start looking at retirement. So we're very, very excited about that. And then there's the breakdown of plan type. Next slide, please. And then we'll just move on. We have over in our training services and programs, we had about 146,000 online virtual programs that we're doing, and that we have since January, actually. So that's in a combination of our training module and our Office of Diversity and Equity training, and just wanted to share that with you. Next slide, please. Office of Public Affairs has been very, very, very busy in making sure that we're taken care of as far as the communication piece, along with our technology program technology group that we have in personnel. And we also work very closely with finance support. And just wanted to share with you that's what we do there. Next slide, please. And then last but not least, you will be seeing, and you're the first that actually will be hearing about this. The Personnel Cabinet came together. We worked for several months on what we call our Healthy at Work, COVID-19 and beyond. Looking forward to the next year and the years beyond. So we're going to have a comprehensive resource guide. It's going to be an interactive online service for all the questions that have been asked from the very beginning since we started in January. We also surveyed our employees to make sure that we have the information that they need, not just about working from home, but start transitioning information about insurance, what type of webinars that are made available and the like. So we're looking forward to that, and they'll be coming out at the end of the year. And I want to thank you again for giving, the next slide, please. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to speak with you. Myself, Raina, and Jana are here to answer any questions that you may have, Chairman, and members of the committee.
Any questions of Secretary Weathers? Madam Secretary, thank you for your presentation. We will move on to next, which is the items under General Government, which is Office of Governor. Is the representative online?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, and please keep your comments to 4 or 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I would like to thank Chairman Mills and the committee members for allowing us to come and present the Governor's Office Fiscal Year 21 budget. I am Tina Howard, Executive Assistant to the Office of Administrative Services with the Finance and Administration Cabinet. I am a career employee, and I've had the privilege to serve the Commonwealth for over 25 years. Also with me today is Kenny Hobbs.
Hello, my name is Kenny Hobbs, and I've worked for the Commonwealth for almost 10 years. I've had the privilege to work in various state agencies, and I'm currently the budget specialist for the Governor's Office. Our first slide today just shows the different offices within the Governor's Office appropriation. Within the Governor's Office appropriation, we have the Governor's Office, which consists of constituent services, boards and commissions, communications, legislative affairs, and then we have the Office of the Secretary of the Cabinet, the Lieutenant Governor's Office, and the Kentucky Military Affairs Commission, also known as KCMA.
The second slide, please. The Office of the Governor's Fiscal Year 21 budget is in the amount of $7,293,700. The expenditure summary displays that majority of the funding is utilized to fund personnel in the amount of $6,207,600, which equates to 84.11% of the total budget. The operating cost totaling $1,086,100 is 15.89% of the fiscal year 21 budget. The fund summary displays the breakdown of funding for the fiscal year 21 budget, which is general fund 83.62%, which equates to $6,099,000. Restricted fund makes up 4.04 of the total budget in the amount of $294,700. And lastly, federal fund is a total of $900,000, which equates to 12.34% of their total budget. Currently, the Governor's Office is operating within their fiscal year 21 enacted budget, and we do not foresee any budget issues throughout fiscal year 21. That concludes our presentation for you today. I'd like to thank you for this time to come and present to you, and if you have any questions, please let Kenny or myself know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one short question here from Chairman McDaniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And guys, thank you for the information on fiscal year 2021, but we had also wanted some ideas on 22. We will not hold you to that strictly, but this committee needs to begin to get an idea of what the executive branch is thinking, so we know what we're going to be walking into. So give us some ideas.
Senator McDaniel, State Budget Director John Hicks will be addressing the full appropriation review committee today at 1 o'clock. And at that time, it is my understanding that he will be speaking more on fiscal year 22.
So let me address that specifically, because I'm going to all these meetings today, and my disappointment in the cabinet so far is only growing. We had a very good, unparalleled level of cooperation between us and the executive branch last session. I really hope we can carry it forward. But that's the second time I've heard the exact same answer from a cabinet today. And really, we're just trying to work cooperatively because we're going to have a tough nut to crack in January, and we're right up on it. So I hope that we go into this session with more ability to cooperate and work together than the first two meetings today have shown me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Miller has a question.
Could you tell us what the $900,000 federal funds is for?
Yes, sir. That's for a grant that is located in Kentucky Military Commission of Military Affairs, and that is a more of a cybersecurity from the Department of Defense. Can you want to elaborate any more on that?
Yeah, this is actually a really good grant. It's a 2-year, $2 million grant that ACMA has, the Department of Defense, and it's for, like Tina said, cybersecurity. One of the major components of this grant is that the sub-grantee is the University of Louisville, and they have a program called the C4 program that assists military servicemen and their spouses with certifications in the cybersecurity industry. And this program hopes to turn out, I think, 110 to 190 people that could possibly get certifications through the program.
Thank you so much. If we have no other questions, sorry. Representative Graves had a question, sorry.
Thank you. Could you please tell us what the Kentucky Employees Health Fund balance is going to be after closeout, please?
That is not in our budget, so we are not knowledgeable for that.
Is there somebody sitting there that's listening that has that answer, please?
If you could get Representative Graves that answer, that would be great. And any other questions? We will move on to the Department of Local Government. Is the representative there online? If you could introduce yourselves. DLG.
I'm trying to get connected.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Billy Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning. About 3 to 4 minutes, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of State and Federal Grants within the Department for Local Government, and with me today is Laura Redmond. She is our DLG Budget Manager. So just a quick overview of DLG for those committee members who are not familiar with us. Local government fulfills statutory obligations of the state local finance officer and the state local debt officer, as well as being responsible for the administration of federal grant programs, such as the Appalachian Regional Commission, local regional authority, community development block grants, recreation, land and water conservation. Also, our state grants include the Local Government Economic Development Fund for Coastal, the Local Government Economic Assistance Fund for Mineral, Flood Control Matching Fund, the Joint Funding Administration Program, and the Regional Development Assistance Program. As with all agencies, COVID and the challenge has brought upon us has been significant. from personal safety in the office to working remotely, we've had to make many adjustments as a department. For providing guidance and assistance to Kentucky city and county governments as they navigate through times. This has been one of our main focuses the last 9 months. So, last year, as you see towards the top, still these general, restricted, and federal appropriations but similar to budgets for our agency in recent years. However, the passage of the Coronavirus Relief and Economic Security Act at the end of PLD has uniquely positioned this position to take on the administration of these CARES Act funds. And as you'll see, towards the bottom of the slide, these additional funds have a significant impact on PLD's budget. The Coronavirus Relief Fund, which has provided direct assistance to local governments, reimbursement grant process, has been the largest amount of money DLG has been working with. These funds are costs for incurred expenses by December 30th year. And the contracts that we have entered into with local government have an ending date of March 31 of 2021. So, however, there are a handful of local governments that have not used their allocations, at least here in Kentucky. I think this may stretch across the United States as well. The Senate has tried to file some information on probably extending that deadline. And if that bill was to move through Congress, it will probably affect Kentucky as well, pushing our deadlines into the next fiscal year. So in addition to those particular CRF grants, DLG also is responsible for the administration of CARES Act funds made available from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development through the Community Development Block Grant Program, as well as CARES Act funds from the U.S. Department of Commerce through the Economic Development Administration, which impacts the Kentucky Joint Funding Administration Program. So finally, when it comes to, when it comes to our coal and mineral segment appropriations, DLG budget requests are based on revenues produced by the Consensus Forecasting Group. So at this time, CFG is not scheduled to meet, but we do expect that they will do so in the coming weeks. So with that being said, I'll be glad to open it up for questions.
Questions from our members? Representative Miles has a question.
Thank you, Billy and Laura, both for all your work. And I just kind of wanted to go back to the amount that's left. I know we had kind of a slow start starting getting out, but then once it started coming out to our cities and counties, it started coming pretty rapid. Do you have a balance right now of what's outstanding that you all have on hand that has not been applied for yet?
I cannot probably give you the balance that is left right now, but probably currently up to date, Representative Miles, we've probably got out the door about $175 million.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and thank you all for your work on that, and please share our thoughts with the commissioner too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for your presentation. We will move on to the Office of Attorney General.
Hey, everybody. This is Daniel. Thanks for inviting me to join you all this morning to talk about the fiscal year 22 budget for the office. And I have with me here, sitting next to me, Deputy Barry Dunn. And in the committee room with you all is the Office of Administrative Services, Stacy Woodrum. And look, we recognize in these uncertain times that every elected official and agency who is a steward of public resources must maximize those resources and try and create ways to continue delivering high-quality services, often with less. And during the fiscal last year in our office, we did just that. As you can see from the slide that I think Stacy has put up, our fiscal year 21 budget totaled just over $35.5 million. Within this total, $12.4 million is general fund dollars, and then $4.9 is federal dollars. $18 million is restricted dollars, and about $150,000 comes from the tobacco settlement master agreement. Shortly after being sworn in last year, our team submitted a proposal for this fiscal year asking for an increase in our budget in order to fulfill our statutory responsibilities as Chief Law Enforcement Office in the Commonwealth. And as I've stated then, it is a core function of government to care for the public safety of its citizens, and our budget requests will always reflect that commitment. While we were not able to secure the requested increase in general fund dollars for this fiscal year and had $500,000 left, we committed ourselves to carrying out the other duties of our office with funds we had available. We appreciate this committee and the larger body for providing bond funding for computer modernization capital project. These funds are being used to revamp the software used by our office to manage constituent needs, case files, and consumer data. But once the project is complete, our office will be able to more efficiently manage legal cases, serve constituents, and track valuable data that will help us better understand public safety trends. While this funding has been extremely helpful to furthering the mission of our office, we are finding that the challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic have only exacerbated our budgetary needs. Here are a few examples. This year, the Department of Criminal Investigations has received 1,162 calls and complaints, more than double the 2019 numbers. Our Office of Rate Intervention has received 452 complaints, and we are on pace in 2020 for the highest number of constituent complaints in the last 3 years. The Office of Consumer Protection has experienced an exponential increase in the caseload of reported scams. September, that number saw a 482% increase. Since the pandemic began, dollar losses resulting from scams have seen as much as an 8,000% increase over 2019. We are managing these increases with reduced staff capacity. The current 2020 consumer complaint mediation caseload, 2,645 cases, divided among 3 employees. The Office of Criminal Appeals has experienced a 25% drop in attorney personnel since 2014, yet the caseload of our attorneys has remained roughly the same. But given these realities, we are requesting an additional $3 million in general fund appropriations and an additional $1 million in federal spending authority. We believe that these requests are necessary in order to continue fulfilling our statutory obligations while accounting for a historically smaller workforce and an increased demand as a result of the pandemic. Please, I want to make sure you all know that our team has carefully considered this request, knowing that there are budgetary needs across the Commonwealth, and you'll hear from other agencies today that will certainly share their perspective and their needs. Over the course of last year, I've certainly asked my staff to look for funding opportunities outside of the budgetary process. We recently secured additional federal funding through the Coronavirus Supplemental Funding Program to assist our offices of senior protection and consumer protection. These funds will further public awareness of COVID-related scams and will assist with our investigative responses to reports of fraud. As well, we've also received a U.S. Department of Justice community-oriented policing microgrant to develop a training and media campaign to raise awareness of human trafficking in the Commonwealth. And these funds are a really huge asset. They're a force multiplier, but they are restricted to special projects, and we are currently, and as always, in need of consistent funding that will allow us to implement strategies and policies that address some of the Commonwealth's most pressing public safety challenges: drug epidemic, human trafficking, and child abuse. We believe that the requested increase of $3 million in general fund appropriations is essential to helping us meet these goals. Look, I appreciate your consideration of our request. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, General Cameron. We have a question from Chairman McDaniels.
Thank you, General Cameron. Appreciate your time today. I know you've got a lot on your plate. 2 things, and I don't want to deal with it today, but I want you to dig further and come back to us. First of all, under DCI, how we more than doubled the number of complaints. I want to know, and listen, this is for the future. The chairman's on a limited time schedule today. But we didn't have twice as much crime in Kentucky this year, so why do we have twice as many complaints? Secondarily, Office of Senior Protection. I've heard some horror stories from friends and family who have folks in nursing homes about the amount of calls that these folks are getting that are scamming people. And listen, that does get to the primary role of your office in government, which is protecting the vulnerable. And nothing infuriates me more than, well, some things do, but that's a pretty bad one, right? So I want to have a further conversation about those two things. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions for General Cameron? Sir, we thank you for your service, and thank you for being here today, and your staff for being here.
Thank you all so much.
Next up is the Department of Treasury. Treasurer Ball is here in person.
Morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll keep my mask on unless you tell me to take it off.
That's
So
fine.
if you can hear me okay, I'll keep moving forward. I know we're trying to be really tight on our schedule today and really quick, so I really am going to be succinct about this. I have one slide, and I'm not going to go over what the Treasury does. All of you are sophisticated. You know me. You've heard me speak before. You know what we do. I do want to mention that I've been very proud of what we've been able to do while we've been in this pandemic. We've kept essential services ongoing. We've processed about 11 million, actually a little more than that, in issued payments, and we also have done about 9 million in unclaimed property, in addition to all the normal things that we do. So we've been running on, even though it's been a difficult time. I have three things that I want to point out to you. Number one, as you know, I really believe in being fiscally conservative, being wise with our money, being careful with it. So the budget request that I'm sending over to you today is actually the same budget request from last year. I understand that we have a tight budget we're looking at, and we're trying to squeeze every penny we can. So it is the same amount from last year. I do want to clear something up as I talk about that. We have CCDD that is now attached to the Treasury. It didn't used to be, but it's been for the last few years, and I know last year there was some confusion about that money. So the total request, as you'll see, is $2,411,800, with $2,263,600 going to the Treasury and $148,200 going to CCDD, which is the Commonwealth Council on Developmental Disabilities. That's actually a separate office, and we don't touch any of those dollars. I'm just going to mention on their behalf that it's important they get that amount of money, and they can't really operate with any less because they get a federal match. If they get less than that, then they get less federal dollars. Right now, they get $1,254,800 of federal dollars. So I just wanted to clear that up. That's money we can't touch. It's theirs, and just want to make sure everybody understands that. That's my number one point that I want to make. Number two, as we've been going through this pandemic, and in the last several years, we've shrunk our personnel quite a bit. I know nearly everyone has. We're at 21, including me right now. We were closer to 30 when I first got in office. And that's been fine for the most part, except we're now running into a situation where we have no backups, and that's been a bit of a problem this year. We've actually had 2 staffers that have had COVID during this time. We've been able to isolate it to just those 2. It didn't spread. And we have some staffers who haven't been able to take a day off since the last 7 months during this entire pandemic. We asked last year for an additional person to focus on cybersecurity. We still need that person because cybersecurity is just as critical and dangerous this year as it was last year, but it's probably more. And that's going to be an ongoing problem. But we also think this individual could also be a backup for these critical services. So we do need this cybersecurity person, and we need them to be able to be a backup for these other folks. If they get sick or something happens to them, we need someone to be able to step in their shoes. We're asking for $113,800, which would cover the salary and the benefits. So this person, like I said, would focus primarily on cybersecurity protection, modernization of IT systems and processes, and be a backup for these other individual people. The third one, and this is a big one that I need to mention today, I've actually asked for it, I think every year that I've been in office, and I think it was asked prior to me coming in office, but we've reached a critical point on this, and this is our printers. Our printers are 10 years old at this point, and we've been pushing them along as far as they'll go. We've run into the problem now where parts are no longer available and technology is becoming out of date. We have a maintenance contract that we've used for them. They've broken down about 17 times this year. We had 2 pretty major problems with them that we were able to get corrected on the back end. We've had to be vigilant to make sure we catch problems so that there aren't payments going out when they shouldn't, or there are correct payments. But I want to mention, we've had our Xerox maintenance, and they told us earlier this year that because they're getting so old, they were going to stop our maintenance in May. And we were able to talk them into continuing until December because we've got a pandemic, we've got a crisis, and so we've got them to be able to continue to provide maintenance for us until the end of this year. We need about $66,000 a year for 5 years to pay for these new printers. Like I said, there's 2 of them, they're 10 years old. You can imagine what it'd be like using a 10-year-old iPhone. We're getting into that world with these printers, and we need to make sure, I think this is the final hour on these printers. We have looked at outsourcing them, and we revisited that over and over and over again over this last year, but the cost for that is actually considerably more. Plus, you lose oversight, and you lose the ability to be able to be quick. I know we had to make a payment on behalf of the General Assembly on the last day on Sine Die last term, and we needed a check immediately, which we wouldn't be able to do that without those printers on hand in the office. Those are my 3 points. I hope that was quick enough and succinct enough.
That was very good. Any questions for Treasurer Ball? Thank you so much. You actually answered our questions and addressed exactly what we needed to hear from you.
Very
So,
good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Next up is the Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joe Bildu. I'm
Good
filling
morning,
in
Joe.
today for Commissioner Quarles and our Chief of Staff.
Absolutely.
Business are out of town today. I'll do my best to pinch hit, and lucky for me, I'm joined today by Lee McIntosh, our Budget Director, who can hopefully fill in any of the details that I don't know.
Very good.
Like Treasurer Ball, I'll try to be as efficient as I can in making the key points we wanted to communicate to you today, sir. First, we are requesting a continuation of the notwithstanding language for 2 of our programs that exist in the current budget language. That pertains to product registration, which is a fancy way of saying pesticides, and small farm wineries programs. Second, we are requesting a restoration of the $2 million in general fund that was reduced in House Bill 352 and instead offset with restricted funds. We're requesting that in the future year, the restoration of that $2 million in general fund appropriations. And then our third point is that our request also includes $1.7 million for our 21 vacant positions. By way of context, in the previous administration, KDA's workforce held steady around 235 employees. We're now at about 200, but even that number is misleading because if you set aside the 8 or 10 positions that didn't exist in the previous administration and which are funded entirely with non-general fund dollars, our workforce will be closer to 190. So as Treasurer Ball said, and as you've heard from other presenters today, our workforce numbers are significantly down. So we are doing everything we can to be as efficient and effective at carrying out the various mandates given to us by the General Assembly. With that, sir, I will pause and do my best to answer any questions that you or the committee may have.
Any budget questions for Mr. Billy? Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here and being available. And I'm sure we'll be back in touch with you when we start crafting our budget. So
Thank you, sir.
thank you for filling in for Commissioner Quarles. Next up is Kentucky Communication Network Authority. Are you online?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jamie Link. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Communications Network Authority, or KCNA.
Please take about
With me this morning.
5 minutes, okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. With me today, for any questions that we might have, is our Chief Operating Officer, Hayden, our Chief Financial Officer, Steve Murphy, our General Counsel, Doug Hendricks, and our Chief Network Engineer, Mitch Powers. We appreciate the opportunity to address the committee this morning, Mr. Chairman, and I'll have some brief comments about the status of the project, and then we can address our budget. Obviously, COVID-19 has certainly highlighted the need for broadband access across our state, and I believe the Kentucky Wired Project positions the Commonwealth to effectively address education, healthcare, economic development, public safety, and other services needed by Kentuckians. The map you see before you indicates we are at over 98% complete with the fiber optic construction across the state. You will notice in West Kentucky we do have two what we call gaps from Hopkinsville to Murray and over around Madisonville that we have under contract, and those will be completed by the spring of 2021. We also have a small gap across the Fort Knox base that we are awaiting final approval from the Corps of Engineers to complete that leg, and that should be completed along the same time frame. To date, and you see ring 1A there in the left of the map, we have migrated 136 state agencies to the Kentucky Wired network, and the results have been very positive, what we had hoped for. We will be migrating other state agencies and state universities and the other rings as quickly as we possibly can. And likewise, we are working to extend the service to quasi-state agencies such as health departments and to residential and commercial customers as quickly as we possibly can. We are also working with the Governor's Office, the Education Workforce Development Cabinet, and other agencies to bring hotspot broadband service across the state to as many locations as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, to address the need for K-12 students and for post-secondary education students for remote learning. And then we are not seeking any additional funding in fiscal year 2021. And our budget is relatively static from year to year. Our 21 appropriation was just over $46 million of that. And of that, 97% of our budget is fixed cost, either availability payments or contractual obligations. Less than 3% is for KCNA operations. And of our general fund appropriation of just over $34 million, 65% of that is for debt service, and of our overall, 44% of that is debt service. For fiscal 22, we are working with the Governor's Office and the Office of the State Budget Director to refine what was submitted in the last biennial request. And as has been mentioned before, Budget Director Hicks will be presenting at 1 o'clock and have more clarity on the fiscal 22 budget that will be presented to the General Assembly. With that, we'll be happy to address any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, sir. Chairman McDaniels has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Link, thank you for being with us. I've made my previous point about the budget pretty well at this point, but I want to know, in 22, how much in terms of dollars will we need to appropriate for availability payments?
I have our CFO on, Chairman McDaniel. I think we're talking in the neighborhood for availability payments of about $32 to $33 million, and we'll be working on to find that for the 22 request. And if Steve needs to clarify anything, I'll defer to him, sir.
No, you're right, Jamie. It's 31.9 million.
Okay, and then when, Director, when we see the budget this coming year, I'd like to see the assessment by agency of what they're being assessed for Kentucky Wired, or KCNA services, sorry about that, just so we can begin to ascertain how much we're going to be expecting from the various cabinets, okay?
Yes, sir. We'll get that to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
Okay, Senator Thomas has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie, this is Senator Thomas. How are you doing?
I'm well, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Jimmy, you are absolutely correct that COVID-19 has certainly highlighted the need for strong broadband services, across this nation, and not just with telehealth services, but certainly with education, with students being out. We've seen how the lack of broadband has just impacted healthcare, has impacted the lack of educational development, and so, Jimmy, I have been a long-time advocate of treating broadband like a utility and doing what we did back in the 1930s with regard to electricity. And so my question to you is this. How far-reaching and how extensive is KCNA in terms of moving forward and treating broadband as utility so that all Kentuckians can have access to it, so that not just we can deal with telehealth services or education, but expand our commercial development and help grow the commercial centers of Kentucky? That's my question to you.
Well, thank you, Senator, and I appreciate the question. Obviously, broadband is now, I would submit, is essential infrastructure. And you mentioned the Rural Electrification Act of the 1930s. I would again submit that broadband infrastructure now is vital to everyday life of most Americans and certainly most Kentuckians. And that this infrastructure, working with the local providers, is going to be the key to expanding this service out to the residents, to the business owner, and I believe that we are looking at some statutory and regulatory issues that may address your question about treating broadband as a utility. We're not there yet, but that's certainly something we'd like to work with the General Assembly to find the best solution to how we can proliferate this service out to the citizens of the Commonwealth.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, any other questions in the room? Okay, we will move on to, and thank you for your presentation from KCNA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we will move on to Kentucky Retirement System. Have somebody online?
You do. This is David Eager. I'm the Executive Director, and I also have Rebecca Adkins, who's our Executive Director of Operations.
Yes, sir, Mr. Eager. You have, let's see, 15 minutes, about 8 minutes.
Okay, I don't think I'll need to take it unless questions carry it on. Let me say, first of all, that we have 120,000 retirees who are getting their check every month post-COVID. There's been no interruption in that. Those are your constituents. Got another 274,000 of your constituents that we're servicing. So we haven't skipped a beat in COVID that I can tell. So just some reassurance. Our budget is unusual in that we put in for a budget request and we get back a disbursement. There's a wash on the state's books, and the expenses are actually paid by the trust. The budget's approved by our board. Our audit committee reviews it quarterly. Our board reviews it quarterly, and the year-to-date actual budget is on the website. I say that particularly K-9 has having a little over $14 billion in unfunded liabilities. Our investments are not going to get us out of that hole. We squeeze every basis point we can with the risk constraints out of the investments. I say the same thing about expenses. It was Ben Franklin who said that penny saved is a penny earned, and that goes directly into anything we can save benefits the trust. So we're very cognizant about trying to watch our expenses. We are currently at 245 employees versus 270 allocated, and we're going to have to be doing some hiring. We have a number of positions that we're trying to fill that'll all fall within this budget. I'd also say that our staff level has been relatively flat for 10 years, whereas the membership has grown by 21%. So it's putting a strain on us. We're trying to offset that with productivity. We just recently introduced, in February 2020, member self-service, so they can begin to do retirements on self-service. We're focusing a lot on how can we use technology to improve service and to contain costs. We have a lot of flies in the ointment, if you will, one of which is our legal expense. We're facing, I can't get into specific litigation, but we're facing seven-figure expenses in a couple of situations. It's uncertain whether it'll go that far or farther, or it won't, but we need to have the flexibility in our budget. But $48.8 million was our budget last year. Its request again is for $48.8 million, and again, that flows through, and it's allocated to each of the plans, as you can see on the right. So AERS gets 31% of that 48 million, and AHAS gets about 3, and state police gets a little less than 1. Questions?
Very good, thank you, Mr. Eagers. Is there questions for? Okay, everybody's nodding their head. Mr. Eagers, thank you for hanging on and being a part of our meeting today. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And our final group to testify is Mr. Bo Barnes here with Kentucky Retirement Systems. Thank you for hanging on till the end.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our budget request today. I serve as Deputy Executive Secretary of Operations and as General Counsel for the Teachers Retirement System. I have one slide. The next one, please. It's just, I'm going to have several items there. I'm just going to focus on the more significant line items here, but if there's questions about any of the others, please let me know. I'm going to spend just a very brief time explaining what some of these line items are, but going to the second line item, and it's an indented line item, you will see state's portion of shared responsibility medical funding. Real quickly, what that is before 2010, retired teachers' health insurance was a pay-go benefit, okay, dollars in, dollars out, never had any real money in the fund. And the state, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, was voluntarily paying most of the cost of retired teachers' health insurance coverage before 2010. And I say voluntarily because we're all aware of that statutory and viable contract that covers a lot of retired teachers' benefits. The only thing guaranteed for health insurance is access to group coverage. But the level of coverage and how much a retired teacher has to pay for that coverage can change depending on the amount of funding available for it. And that just wasn't working before 2000. It was getting too much for the state. So our Board of Trustees directed us for a year and a half before 2010 to meet with stakeholder groups and what kind of solution can we get for funding this important benefit. And the solution was, and everybody agreed on this, it took a lot of meetings, a whole lot, but was that active teachers began phasing in to paying an additional 3% out of their paycheck to help fund this benefit. School districts met that phase-in amount. Retired teachers under the age of 65 agreed to pay an amount equal to the Medicare Part B premium, okay, towards the cost of their premium. And the Commonwealth of Kentucky, which has been paying for most of this benefit, their share of this was to pay for retired teachers' health insurance for under age 65 retirees who are in the Kentucky Employees Health Plan, who were new, who retired on or after July 1st, 2010, and to pay that cost of the premium less what they pay. So today the Commonwealth's paying about $520 a month of the typical $7 a month premium, and the retirees paying $180 a month. So that's what this line item is, and this has been a great success story. I tell you right now, the medical insurance fund was 3.5% funded in 2009. The last valuation, 2019, it had grown to 46%. So tremendous success story. Great news there. Going down to the fifth line item, you will see additional employer contributions required for ADEC. And ADEC simply stands for Actually Determined Employer Contribution. It used to be called ARC. You might have heard that reference, same thing. So what this is, at TRS we have fixed employer contribution rates, okay? For our individuals who became members before July 1st, 2008, the Commonwealth, for its part, is 13.105%, okay, of pay. For people who became members on or after July 1st, 2008, it's 14.105% of pay. And that is actually more than enough that we need to put aside to pay for teachers coming to the classroom, to pay for their benefit one day when they retire. It's more. That excess is going, and that's from those fixed statutory contribution rates, is going to help pay down the unfunded liability, that legacy unfunded liability of the retirement system. But it's not enough. So we need more to implement our funding plan to pay off that legacy unfunded liability. And we're trying to do that like paying off a home mortgage. It was a 30-year amortization period, okay? We're down to about 25, a little less than 25 years in that amortization period in implementing our funding plan. And these additional dollars that we're getting, we are very, very thankful. And the teachers are very, very thankful for these additional dollars that we're getting in the budget, because it's a game changer, not just in implementing our funding plan, but it's a game changer in our ability to invest, because this was hampering our ability to invest when we were not getting these additional dollars that we were getting now and gotten in the last few budgets. So we're very appreciative of that. And the good news is When this legacy unfunded liability is paid off, and it will be, the normal cost, what we would request in our budget to the Commonwealth of Kentucky would be about 6% of pay, okay? Social Security is 6.2%. So again, it takes a while. We still got 24 or 25, somewhere in between years left to pay this off. But when we get there, there's great relief for the Commonwealth. Below that, line number 6, TRS actual budget, we just add all these numbers above together, and then we have to go on down below to line item 7, okay? And line item 7, to get the full dollars that we're getting at TRS, our budget does not include that fixed statutory contribution rate, okay? That goes through KDE's budget request to the Commonwealth. It's part of the SEEK formula. So that's the fixed statutory rate. Everything you got above it is what we need for ADAC, it's what we need for medical insurance. Those are the biggest 2 ticket items up there. But this line, line 7, statutory contribution funded through SEEK formula and KDE budget, is the on behalf payments that the Commonwealth makes for the districts to pay for their retirement contributions. And then the line just below that, you just have the grand, the sum of all those budget requests. So you'll see the budget request for 2021 was $1,155,525,500. From 2022, it's $1,184,717,800. I know I went through that quickly, but I know you want me to get through this as well.
You did very well. I'm sure we'll have several questions. Representative Gravis has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get to my question, Mr. Chairman, are you going to meet in December or no?
It's undetermined.
In case you don't, I just would like to thank everyone in the room and everyone online. It's been an honor serving with y'all, and appreciate the kindness that y'all have afforded someone from the opposite party, and we'll never forget that and appreciate that. So thank you for your service. Good luck. We have a lot to do in Kentucky, and so I'm grateful for your kindness to me in the last 2 years. My question, Bo, again, another statement. I have dove into pensions, as you and many people know, and I totally respect and appreciate what you and your team and your staff do and have done. You guys are unsung heroes for hundreds of thousands of people in Kentucky, and I'm extremely grateful for what y'all do and what you get out of it, which is not enough. So thank you for your service. My question, thank you, Mr. Chairman, my question is, do the numbers that you're requesting here have an impact on your cash flow that we get reported to us periodically? And do you think that these numbers are going to allow you to reduce that negative cash flow number, or will it go up, stay the same, or do you know?
Okay, so that's important. The important line item in response to your question is number 5, additional employer contributions required for ADAC. Before we were getting those additional contributions, we were having cash flow problems. We were starting to get constrained because negative cash flow was getting too large, and we'd probably be over $1 billion a year negative cash flow at this point had we not been getting these additional dollars. So this was critical. With this funding, the negative cash flow is very manageable now. I know there was a presentation by LRC staff, the Public Pension Oversight Board, and they talked about negative cash flow and acceptable ranges of negative cash flow. And TRS is well within that acceptable range of negative cash flow now, given their presentation, based on the influx of dollars we were getting now. So we are in good shape. And if these dollars are maintained in future budgets, we will be able to keep negative cash flow in control, and we'll be able to implement our funding plan to reach that 100% funded mark.
Mr. Chairman, a follow-up,
Sure.
please.
Real quick.
Bo, will your negative cash flow be reduced or not with these numbers?
No, I don't anticipate it being reduced greatly. It will fluctuate somewhat, but it is very manageable. I mean, it's...
I understand, and I believe you, and you're right, but it is a concern with a lot of members, and I just wanted to see if this was going to have any impact on it, and the answer is minimal. But I agree with you, you're managing it well, and we're going to be okay as long as we make the required contributions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Gravis. We appreciate your input on the committee, for sure. Chairman McDaniels has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just to follow up, first of all, Representative Gravis's comment, he has come in and been a diligent, attention to detail-oriented member, and his voice will be missed by the 137 other of us here. So best of luck with whatever you have, sir. That being said, Bo, a couple of things. First of all, you have an ongoing experience study.
Yes, sir.
Could the results of that impact the numbers that we see up there?
It will impact it for future budgets. Yes, it could. It could.
Future to include 22 or for the next biennial budget that we will deal with in the 22 session?
For the next biennial budget.
So it will not impact what we deal with come January?
Yes, and so the timing of this is, what we do. And what Senator McGann was talking about is every 5 years, TRS does an experience study. So our actuaries look at what they thought was going to happen over the last 5 years and what really happened. And then that's when you review assumptions every year, actual assumptions every year, but that's really a big opportunity to look at that and make certain adjustments, like to investment return or other, assumptions. But so that could have an impact. It takes a while. For right now, they've been working on trying to get the 2020 evaluation done, the 1 year. That by statute is due by November 15th to be reported to LRC. And we're pushing to get that done, and we will have it done. We will have that done, so we'll have the 2020 numbers here very shortly. And then they start working on the 5-year evaluation. And I've asked them, how quickly can we get that experience study done and then figure out where we are, because it is a lot of work. You're looking at demographics, you're looking at investments, you're doing auditing and double checking. So there's a lot involved in it, but we will have that sometime next year. And of course, we'll do a budget next year too, the 2022 budget.
Oh, we get to do 3 in a row, Bo. It's
What's
awesome.
that?
I said we get to do 3 in a row. It's wonderful.
Yes, sir, I know. I understand.
But, so I guess the short answer is the 1-year study could very well have an impact on what we're looking at next year.
Yes.
Next year meaning
Yes.
the budget we have to write from January to April of 2021 could be impacted based off of that.
The 1-year study, because every year we do have our evaluations, what happened this year. They do a gains loss. How many retirements did we have versus what we thought we'd have? Mortality, all those kind of things. And they do a gain loss statement. And then if it's a gain, they amortize that over 20 years. If it's a loss, they amortize it over 20 years. So whatever changes you have in experience from year to year is built into our budget over a 20-year period. So you're absolutely right, it will have an effect. And that 5-year experience study could have an effect depending on, if there's any assumption changes.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both thanks as always.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Representative Gooch has a question.
Thank you, Bo. When you were talking about a negative cash flow, I understand that you can amortize that or whatever, but when those events get pretty severe, in the past, have you had to deal with negative cash flow situations by actually selling assets from the fund? And can you tell me a little bit more about when that happened and where we are on that possibly ever happening again?
Yes, okay, that's a good question. Negative cash flow was really getting bad building up to 2016. Then we got additional funding in the 16-18 budget. We got about 95% of the additional, that ADEC we needed. We got all the additional funding we need 18-20. And the current budget we're in right now, we've got all the budget, money we need for this current fiscal year. Before we got that additional funding, yes, we were having to sell assets we did not want to sell. We were having to avoid investments in some longer-term investments that were very attractive and good opportunities for us, but we couldn't get into those investments because you have to hold that investment long-term. If you sell it too early, you're going to lose money every time. So that's why we had to avoid those investments, because we thought we might need that money for liquidity to meet that monthly retirement payroll. So we had that before. We are now in great shape with negative cash flow. Gabriel Roder-Smith, GRS, did an article about negative cash flow, and they said negative cash flow is normal in a pension fund. When it's bad, is if you're really underfunded, it's bad, or if it's getting too high. If it starts getting like around 4%, then you're getting too high. But, we're down closer to 2%. We're in a good area right now. Our actuaries say it's good. GRS, not even our actuary, says it's expected. So we're in a good place, very good place right now. It was getting scary before.
Senator Thomas has a brief question, and it'll be the last question.
Thank you, Senator. It will be brief. I just got to tell you, Bo, as someone who thinks of himself being fiscally prudent, negative cash flow is never a good thing in my mind. So I guess my question is, what is our negative cash flow, and then how can we eliminate it? Because it can't be a good thing, generally speaking.
Well, and I've got a slide, and I'd be glad to share it with the committee anytime. So negative cash flow only tells half the story, okay? It tells contributions coming in, okay, versus benefits going out. What it doesn't capture is our investment earnings. So you will see the corpus of our pension trust grow significantly, even when we had negative cash flow, more significant negative cash flow, because it only tells half the story. You leave out the biggest part of that, or the investment earnings. It's not the contributions coming in. It's the investment, the growth of the trust by investments. So I understand your concern, and a lot of people have that concern, and I would be glad to share that slide with this committee so it kind of shows very clearly why it only tells part of the story.
Very good. Mr. Barnes, thank you so much. I think every time you come before us, you do a really good job of trying to answer our questions and give us as much detail because it's a difficult subject, and if you don't deal with it every day, it's hard to understand. So thank you so much. Thank you. We now have a quorum, so hopefully somebody's read the minutes. Do we have a motion on the minutes? All right, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. And let's see real quick, is anybody online that's joined us? I know Representative Meredith came in, and I think we got him on the roll call. Anybody else online that feels like they missed out? Going once, going twice? Okay. Representative Stone is? Very good. Thank you, sir. All righty.
County Minister is here, please.
Representative Mentor is here. Anybody else? Very good. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here today. It was a productive meeting. Oh, yes, Representative Miles has one thing real quick.
I think we ought to be sure and wish our Marines a happy birthday today. Today's the
Absolutely.
245th birthday for the Marines, so keep
Very
that in
good.
mind. Thank you.
Everybody have a good day. Thank you.